Hello, everyone. We'll just wait a couple of seconds. Here we are, back again. Hopefully, I don't know if we can live up to the entertainment of last week's performance, but we are back again, and I'm here with Tom Fortsmayer, the most, probably the most intelligent guy that has the most wisdom on some of the most interesting topics I have ever met in my entire life. Anyone who tuned in last week, hopefully you are back. Here we are. Oh, hang on. I'm not in Earth Elders. Hang on. Let me just go Earth Elders. If you are jumping on, please do say hello. We're going to have an interesting topic tonight. Let's go. Save changes. Here we are. Just dropped in. Who's on? Natalie Quirk. We've got, please do say hello as you jump on. How many of you have been told to stop talking about your issues? And then in the next moment, no, actually, you should keep talking about your issues and heal them. And there seems to be different, I'd say, bodies of thought, or I call it a bit of a paradox. I think you called it a healing paradox, Tom. So we're going to talk tonight. Hello, Nat. We're going to talk tonight about that, about this paradox of don't talk about your issues, but then talk about them. You have to talk about them, and then people are like, would you stop talking about them? Do I call you Natalie? So if you are jumping on, I can't see everyone that is jumping on. I'm going to go into one of the groups. Please do get involved in this. So why don't you start us off, Tom? Well, let's talk about one of your issues.
Very glowing introduction there. I think I just turn up with these weekly introductions. They're getting more and more overblown. I don't know how much you're going to pick me up next time, but I mean,
I don't know. Last week was pretty epic. I don't know if we can top it.
Well, let's see. I mean, this one we might be slightly more technical, in terms of what we're talking about. But
yes, okay.
There's a big difference between being identified with our trauma and our difficult story and the narrative of our past pain, and being able to apply the right tools and approaches and sensitivities to be able to understand the balance of when do we need to really commune with our pain and when do we really need to look at finding these hurt parts of ourselves. When is it healthy and healing for us to go into connection with that? And when are we looping around our victimology? When are we using our sad story to have contact with ourselves and have connection with others? And how are we becoming defined and how are we becoming limited by that? And then the paradox of that, there are actually, in some cases, we need to go really, really slowly. And that some techniques for some people would just re-traumatize them. And actually they need to spend a very, very long time being really, really gentle with their process and not pushing too hard. And unfortunately, what you have is you have a shadow in both sides of those areas. So that it's really easy to point to certain people that are entrenched in any one of those camps who are actually not doing what's actually good for them. So people will spot someone and go, oh, this person, is just... How many workshops do they need to, how much are they going to talk about how upset they were about their mother and they're just caught in this thing, and they're right, they're just looping and they're macking off the biochemical addictions associated with that, and they're hiding, and yet to take that and extrapolate out therefore then inner work is just self-indulgent nonsense is really inappropriate and dangerous. And the flip side is also true. People who are just like, oh, you don't need to dwell on your past. It's all bullshit. It's just all part of your ego identity. Just transcend. There's either the pragmatic, logical rationalists who are just like, it's in the past. It doesn't matter. Get on with it, And then there is the spiritual transcendent gang, who are just like, all of your trauma is in the ego identity. So transcend your ego identity and then you will be free. And it's like, and of course, there's incredible beauty in all of those approaches, but there's shadow in all of those approaches. And it does my head in that you'll see people pointing fingers at people that have got it wrong in any one of the camps, and then they denigrate the whole camp, that whole philosophy, that whole way of being. Whereas the truth is, we actually need a little bit of all of those. And it's knowing when to apply which tool at which time. That is the key, That's the key. It's like, it's like whatever works for you. And yes, you should, as we spoke about this last week, as long as you go into anything knowing that there's going to be limitation and delusion and dark side associated with any belief and any model and any practice, no matter how brilliant it is, at least got one eye of looking for the shadow, one eye of looking for where this might be dysfunctionally addictive, then, we'll find our way. But the idea of pointing at some dysfunction within any model and other people's relationship to specific kinds of work, and then labeling that whole like approach to healing as being wrong, it drives me crazy. It's just like the different religious, in the New Age world, it's like the different religious sects saying, no, it's just physical, it's just trauma release stuff, and you don't need to know the why. And then the other people are just going, oh, it's just, it's all, everything is meaningless, so therefore it's just what you do today that counts. And it's like everyone's getting so flipping dogmatic about their healing approaches. It's just like, we're just setting up new religions to go to spiritual war all over again, but we're just more flipping mala beads and incense,
Oh, very interesting. Lots of points that I want to point in there. And I just want to, just before I do, want to just acknowledge everyone that is jumping on. Like I said, if I can't see you, would love your engagement, and anything that Tom just said, would love your thoughts on that. Whether you see the truth in that or if you have anything to contribute. Hello, Nat. Hello, Christy. Hello, Naomi. Summers, good to see you. Natalie Quirk. Chloe, I believe is that Jen? Very true. Those of you that are jumping on, would love to engage with you on this topic. I think this all came up because I got on this call and said, I finally, for anyone that has been following my stuff and my journey of evolution solutions, this is actually about my evolution just as much as anyone else's. I did my first inner child healing today. And I said to Tom, and he was like, yeah, because, that's like his favorite thing. And Tom, you actually do that work, don't you? That's part of your practice, your therapy?
Yeah, in my private practice, that's 80% of what I do. And in my therapist training, that's the main focus, teaching people the technicality of dissolving self-sabotage, imposter syndrome, and how we, push away the very things we want for these specific patterns. So it's inner child work for the purpose of dissolving self-sabotage.
Yeah, okay.
Reconnecting to self-love.
Okay. No, this is good because you're not jealous that I went to someone else, are you? Because as I got on this call, I was like, oh, I didn't go and see Tom.
Yes, I am. Completely.
How dare you?
How dare you? No,
how dare you?
I'm good.
And I must admit, when someone mentioned inner child work to me, I mean, you remember, this was maybe a few months ago, and I'm like, you can shove your inner child up your ass. I'm sick of reliving this shit. I've had enough. It was like, again, I was beating my head up against a wall going, I'm so sick of everyone telling me that the answer to all my relationship issues is to go and do another program. I'm like, I'm taking a fucking break from programs, from transformation, because it feels like another way to fix who I am. When actually everything right now is like, sure, there's clearly something blind, right? Because, I've had a series of relationships that haven't worked. There's something here that I don't see. But why do we always go, and this is the thing that fucks me off, excuse my language. I guess you say excuse my French, but there's actually no French word. I'm so over it that people will just go, if I'm like batting my head up against a wall, oh, come and see me, I'll heal you. Right? I did really get frustrated with that.
Yeah, well, of course, because, that's sleazy, and, no one ever heals anyone, right? We just, we create a facilitated space for them to do it. But, right, it is, what I've realized, and I think the best way to speak about this stuff, right, is we have to do loads of healing work to realize that there was nothing ever wrong with us. The inner child work is not about fixing something that's broken. Inner child work is about finding a child within that has it is choosing to blame itself for the failings of its carers, and choosing also to project onto the world that no one will meet my needs and nothing will ever work, as a way of making sense of its disappointment. And the primary feeling that it's resisting is just heartbreak about our carers. Now, that is nothing to fix. That is just a misperception. It's the moment in the road where we went from loving ourselves to actively getting in the way of ourselves, hiding our light, blocking our joy, pushing away love, sabotaging freedom, abundance. You know, it's like there's nothing broken apart from an idea that we chose to identify with. So inner child work is not about healing anything broken in you. It's about returning to a realization that there was never anything wrong with you. And that's a very different thing, you know. It's a very, very different thing. It's like we have to do this healing to realize we didn't need healing.
You know, it's interesting what you're saying, right? It's like you just said, you kind of have to do a lot of work to realize that there's nothing wrong with you. You have to do a lot of work to realize you don't need a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
And I find that interesting because, you know, what was frustrating? Well, firstly, I have done a lot of work. I've done it for 7 years. I've led transformational programs myself for a long time, coached on them for 5 years. I call it transformed my own asshole up to the yin yang. Like it's like some days I was like looking for something, even though it didn't exist. I was so into it, right? And what was interesting is that I firstly resisted. I was like, there's something here. I've got, my relationship broke down 3 years ago with my ex-wife. I've had a couple of relationships in between, that haven't worked out. And I've been beating myself up for this. And I've just kind of resigned to that. I'm never going to meet anyone. And knowing that that's the case, wanting to express it, as I express it to people are like, I'd do another course, right? Or do an inner child healing. And I was like, I did get a bit frustrated. I went, I even wrote a post and I was like, stick your inner child up your ass. But I went through that kind of getting annoyed. And then I meet this one person, right? And well, not one person, but I'm in one conversation with this woman online last week. We did a show, Curious, the other show I do, and I just start crying. She wasn't trying to heal me. She was just having a conversation. She wasn't even talking about me. She was talking about herself and her vulnerability and how her husband, her son was born with cancer, right? And she was sharing that, and then how her husband died 2 years later. So this was about 15 years ago, and sharing her journey of what it was like to actually love again after that. And I then got connected to how I hadn't allowed myself to love again. And it was then that I wanted to explore that, and how I got very connected to how much I wanted to love again. In that conversation, that instantly I took action and went, I'm going to do something about this.
Yeah.
And then things started to open up from there. But it was like, we say, don't talk about don't dig into it. But really, it's not about going, do a program every time someone speaks. It really, for me, it's like, how can we open our hearts so much to each other about our own healing, about our own shit that we've discovered about our life, about our own struggles, about our own things that we've looked at and discovered that we hadn't let go of, so that other people get to see it and do the same. That's what I see anyway.
Yeah. I think if you've ever done a course that was so powerful that you want your family to do it, don't tell them about it. Just show them the benefits, right? By bringing a quality of love to yourself and others. People are like, what the hell are they on? I want what they're having, right? Telling people to do stuff, and it's, and everyone's at their different stage. It's like you can do inner child processes with people all day long, but if they're not ready, You need to be in a specific place to be ready to hear it and to feel it and to connect. But what I want you to, for me, the beauty of that work, it is the realization that our inner child is our sovereign seed, and it gets frozen in painful ground. Yeah. And it gets trapped, these sovereign seeds, these aspects of our sovereignty. And so people say to me all the time, and we're not just, why are you just kind of going to open a can of worms? It's just like, it's painful. Why do I need to go back? And it's like, the can of worms is already open. It's messing up your relationship. It's blocking your abundance. The toxicity is at play in your psychology. This is not about opening a can of worms. This is about rescuing kids and bringing them home, and then planting their sovereign seeds in our heart, where we can fully come into bloom, where we come of age in ourselves and we realize our value. And it's like, and then all of our forgiveness works. It's like most people have done so much work on forgiveness, but we cannot forgive that which we haven't first accepted was bad. So the inner child's walking in a circle backwards, protecting us from all this pain. We're deluding ourselves, blaming ourselves, telling ourselves it's just normal that people are shit. And we have to go in, sit within a child, and it's like, no, you were uniquely let down in all sorts of incredibly painful ways. And it's like, oh, why am I defining my value by how I was being treated by people who are fucked up themselves? And it's the whole thing just dissolves into a kind of compassionate, like, reintegration of not just unconditional love for this youthful spirit that is innocent and doesn't deserve love because of a meritocracy where it's taken a step or got an A. It just deserves love because it's a human fucking being. And we integrate it, and it's like, oh, in that liberation, then it's up the family line. And it's like, what are we going to go and do? Just go up the family line and beat up our great grandfather? It becomes illogical, preposterous even. It's like the line of freedom opens up, and then finally we can actually then contextualize, forgive, make sense of our parents' failings, and realize that they are just the product of failings upon them. And it's like, if we go from having a theoretical compassion to an actual felt love for ourselves and a deep understanding for anyone else that's ever going to be a twat, we can see right into the heart of all people who are lost and recognize the most destructive are those that are most lost. And therefore the most logical response is more compassion, more love. And of course, we can't help but then bring that to ourselves when we inevitably fall off our self-constructed pedestals. It's like, it's so fucking beautiful, because it's not about healing, it's about loving. And it's about returning to peace and recognizing, like, wow, all dysfunction is born from fear, and fear should never be met with hatred or anger.
No. And yet, in this day and age, particularly around now, it seems to be even more so being met with that. I absolutely agree with you. Wouldn't it be great if Facebook, I was speaking to a guy today that was talking about this. He was so intelligent and he was a massive visionary. And he was talking about, just imagine if the algorithm actually did send you the nicest people to give you the nicest comments, like when you were really ranty, like just imagine that you did have a situation when you just lost your shit. And what the algorithm then did was go and find the kindness out there and then bring that kindness of people could hold you. Like, imagine the intelligence behind, if Facebook was actually about humanity-led business, which is what I was talking about, the work that I do. Imagine that. This is actually a person that really needs some assistance, but actually what the algorithm does is it goes away and it finds people who will basically bully that person. It brings to it more and more of that person. Well, it's not intentional, but it's just the way that it goes, like brings like, and so it brings more of that to it, right? So there was another reason I was making that point, but it was really more about, that's not how people are being met right now. I do. What I'm saying is, I agree with you, Tom. And, maybe actually I just had my first inner child healing this morning. So maybe it's my own view, because I've been stuck in my own view since I was 4, which I discovered this morning. But And maybe ask this question. My experience of life up until today has been that it's not safe to be fragile, vulnerable, and soft. And I got this morning that was because of something that happened when I was 4. But does everyone have that experience? Because as far as I can see, everyone does.
I believe that. So I was having a conversation today, and I really, this came out of my mouth, and it's like, I really believe it to be true that even if we had enlightened parents, we would still need therapy, because the perceptual mechanism of the supposedly separate personality structure that can't hold its head up, doesn't know how to take a step, is in a world where it doesn't know the language. It's absolutely packed full of trauma and feelings of inadequacy. Okay, then we add to that our parents' inevitable failings and fallibilities, and we start to get very, very unhappy, very, very unstable, feel very, very unsafe. So our primary sensation is things are not right, things are not easy, be careful, be liked, make everyone happy, how am I going to survive? The whole thing is built with a whole amount of kind of terror and trauma as a result of that terror, and a whole bunch of strategies that we try and apply to ingratiate ourselves with people we don't fully understand, that also seem so insecure in themselves that if we smile at them, it seems to make them happy. Like, we learn very, very early on that the people around us are so invested in us liking them that if we smile, they fucking erupt in joy. And it's like, on one level, that's nice, but on another level, that's absolutely terrifying also. So I see my 1-year-old now, just like she comes, I walk into the room and she gives me this massive smile, and it's actually, that's not coming totally from love. It's like she wants me to pick her up, and we start being political beings very, very early, right? But specifically when our parents don't see us, aren't present, aren't happy, aren't inspiring, are not loving, are not caring, mainly are not present, then we inevitably make that about our failings, and we project their failings onto the world as being normal. So we develop a very clear narrative: I'm not okay, and the world won't be able to meet my needs. And so we realize what we turn that into is, I can't be myself and have my needs met. So I need to find some way of presenting myself to play some kind of game to win. And yet I'm playing against a stacked deck. And that, for so many people, is life. And then you get into education, and education in the most is not about empowerment. It's not about liberation, and compounds the feeling of inadequacy, and compounds the feeling of not sticking out, not speaking up, not being unique, and also pumps us full of incredibly aspirational ideas that happiness is based when we achieve. And yeah, by the time most of us are young adults, we're deeply, deeply neurotic. And ultimately, there's still nothing wrong with us, right? There's absolutely nothing wrong with us. There's nothing wrong with life. And it's like, and most of the troubles in the world are part of people battling against that terror and that awfulness inside, right? And so to be able to lovingly scoop up that young version, just go, oh, kid, I'm so sorry. Please don't define yourself by the quality of care that you received, because it's got nothing to do with you.
It's so true. Again, we kind of always come back to this point in our discussions where we're like, you really cannot avoid being mad and,
No.
losing shit, and you can't avoid, Kylie's just said, just love everyone, you, of course, pour in and connect to and find ways to just, unify and create a unity consciousness around the world. And yet, we all know that there are moments sometimes when death happens and suicide happens and, some really not okay things happen in life, where you actually do go through periods where you hate everyone. And you feel so betrayed by this particular incident that it colors your view of the entire society and humanity. And then you play those actions out, and you don't really feel that. Like I said, the word, but it's like you're not actually presenting yourself as someone that is easy to love. And then a very few people might be able to hold you in that, but at the same time, it then triggers other people's own experiences of where they're their lives and they were wronged, and so there's this triggered, you know, like I call it trigger party,
Trigger train,
a trigger train, you know, and it's like it's I suppose I always go back to I absolutely agree, Kylie, you know, you just love everyone, but in those moments we don't always do that.
We can't love everybody if we have fragments of our soul frozen in time telling themselves bullshit about what's happening to make sense of something that's happening, which is painful. The truth, it's truth and love, those two things combined. You know, just love everybody. It's like, that's great. I know loads of people who are the love and light brigade. They meditate all the time. They take a lot of cacao. They, you know, they're free. They spend their time moving between Bali and all these different places, and they're just all about the love and the light, you know. And unfortunately, piss them off, scratch the surface, and they are ready to be enraged and awful. And is because we cannot be love and light unless we have like accessed the repressed heartbreak in us, which is in anguish. It's terrified and is holding on to the idea that we're not okay and that the world isn't okay. And so systematically, the key to being free and the key to being happy is having the courage to journey with compassion to these broken and afraid and scared parts of ourselves and scoop them back and to feel the very terror that they were once too afraid to feel, and to think the thoughts and to explore all of that pain and to allow it to be there, to journey into the heart of our darkness and rest in it and allow it to pass and to move through. And in that, we then realize that there's nothing broken and it was never our fault, and that we are amazing and can be amazing, and that other people are amazing and will see us and value us and meet our needs. And the wave of grief and mourning and loss and frustration that child holds, actually because it knew the truth that it was being let down. And this all integrates. And these parts of us that at times can feel so young when we're presenting or when we're being sexual, or they're because we've been trying to do stuff which is not age appropriate for our frozen parts. You know, people say to me, oh, I'm afraid of public speaking. It's like, you're not, but your unresolved frozen inner child is, because you shouldn't be making a 6-year-old present to 200 adults. You know, or people who may have been sexually abused when they were 11 and they have an 11-year-old frozen in their kind of sexual kind of quadrant. And they're surprised why, when they're trying to be sexual with their partner, they feel like it's gross or it's icky. It's like, well, it's because you're making an 11-year-old have sex with an adult. It's not age appropriate. These parts remain frozen in time. But the most magical and beautiful thing about these parts is that actually, if you can commune with them, if you can feel their pain, if you can feel their trauma, then actually you're able to integrate them. And when you integrate them, these parts are some of our most creative, playful, spontaneous, dynamic. They're some of our most powerful aspects. And that when we integrate them, oh my God, it's not just that we get over our past. It's like we're buying our soul back. We're getting our superpowers back. You know, it's like, and we then realize that the crux of the therapeutic promise is that it's not what's happened to us that matters. It's what we've done with it. It's not the damage of most trauma. This is not the case for complex post-traumatic stress disorder, where people have a very jarred nervous system that needs a different type of healing, and it takes longer and it needs to go very gently. So I want to be really clear for some people. Some people have the privilege of not having those experiences, and therefore they can't just apply their trauma healing to people with more complex problems. Okay. But in the main, for what I call everyday people who are lucky enough and privileged enough not to have been exposed to wholesale, regular trauma of a massive nature consistently for many years, but for the more kind of everyday people that, you know, had lots of trauma, but not so bad as that, then actually massive improvements can happen, beautiful changes can happen, whereby which we stop sabotaging, we stop blocking our potential, we allow love in, we start partnering with people that will see us, value us. You know, I see it all the time. People suddenly putting themselves out there, getting more work, being courageous enough to be self-expressed. You know, it's like, the revolution will be led by the liberated inner children.
Beautiful. And I just want to acknowledge we've had a few people jump on. Kylie, hello, Eugene, Andrea. So this is the Andrea. This is the Andrea that I did the inner child healing. Watching. Yes, Sue and everyone else that is still watching. And it's interesting what I can hear you saying again. We talked about that last week. This isn't about always being loving, or this is about coming back to and having access to these moments where you remember who you are. And people that do go in and do inner child healing work. I mean, I've only just done it today, so I'm not an expert here.
Awesome work, Andrea. Awesome work, Andrea.
I am now healed. But I must admit, just going into it, because I had so much resistance doing it in the first place, because as this is titled, don't talk about, what did I title it? It's titled "Stop Talking About Your Issues," or should we keep talking about your issues, right? At times, I would just feel like, seriously, how many times do I have to go over this series of incidents that happened in my life? There's about 3 or 4 that are kind of pivotal around that age. And I'm like, how many times? I have done, but realistically, I won't go into it. I've done so much work, right? But realistically, and I said this to my friend tonight, it's like you don't go to the gym once, get muscles and go, nailed it, I'm good.
Great example. Great example.
It's like, nailed it, I'm good now. And I think that's our physical body. This is our living of our life. So there's what I think is beautiful about this time is there's so many modalities out there that give us the opportunity to actually train our own minds or unlearn a lot of our own conditioning so that we can actually build our muscle in the living of our life so that we can live it more fully. And this was more access for me today. Now, should I have felt my feelings today? I went into the call. I'm like, Andrea, I have a reputation to uphold here. I noticed as I had my show with Andrea, I played it back because I was so uncomfortable in the call. I'm all about being authentic. And I was on the call cutting her off. I was like, yeah, laughing, whilst actually what was going on was the whole time I was feeling quite sick. And I didn't know why. And I didn't really know. And I was like, why am I feeling like this? And then I'm crying and I didn't know why I'm crying. Anyway, I was like, I don't know what's happening, but I'm crying. And we went back to this incident, right? So I'll tell you the incident. So this is it. I've been over this in all sorts of modalities, in all sorts of ways, right? It's not a new incident for me. But I just got to look at it again. And I'll tell you the story, but then I'll be really interested to hear, when people say, I've dealt with this, it's like, am I bringing this up again? Because I saw it newly again. I saw it from a new perspective, which is this idea, this visualization of this inner child. So I'm 4 years old and I'm standing at the top of my stairs and I slip and I fall down to the very bottom. My cheek and my head is bruised. I start crying. I'm in a lot of pain. I'm pretty sure that I've injured my ribs quite badly. I can't remember what happened after that. And I'm lying at the ground and my grandmother saw the whole thing and she's looking at me. And I look up at her, expecting her to kind of come in and cuddle me and nurture me. I was expecting this kind of response. She looked at me, scowled, and said, "Quit your belly aching." Right?
Jess, just sorry to interrupt. I want you to say that sentence again, but without the laughter, because there's nothing funny about that. I want you to say what she said.
It's funny because it's fucking awful.
No. You say it funny to not feel how awful it was. I want you to say it without the laughter, because it's not funny.
Oh no, now I feel like we're doing another hot. Okay. Oh, see how much I need to make a joke of it?
That's
Right?
what people do. And you'll notice if you say it without the joke, you'll actually feel how awful. The joke is an insulation of the horror. And the integration comes from not insulating from the horror. And the whole life is about that. So just say it, say what she said, but without the laughter.
Yeah, so she said, quit your belly aching in that moment. Right? And in that moment, you know, I was like, describe the experience, and I couldn't even put an experience on it. It was some sort of combination of betrayal, abandonment, like disbelief, disappointment, and I like confusion as well. Like what?
Mm-hmm.
And then there was almost like this instant toughen up kind of experience. Like, okay, I'll have to be tough. You know, it was almost like immediately. And then that's what you see a lot of me now is this tough, kind of confident presence, right? But underneath, what's actually really there and what I really want to show my intimate partners and what I really want to show my friends is this fragility that I have, and I haven't expressed it almost like in 34 years.
Well, and if I may reflect, that it's likely when you have ever asked for some need or boundary to be respected or need to be met, it will have come through the 4-year-old filter of, I don't think you're going to be able to hold me. I don't think you're going to be able to do this. I don't think you can do this. And when you make a request with that reverse paddling, it feels really weird. So people don't know how to meet your needs. It comes over with that actually don't. This is what I want, but you're not going to. So people feel paralyzed by those kind of requests, because the 4-year-old doesn't actually, that part of us, what it does, and this is so powerful. Unfortunately, there are two defenses. The first defense we apply is there's something wrong with me. The second happens when it's absolutely undeniable that they've done something wrong. Now, it's clear you've fallen down the stairs. Your grandmother should be there to support you, right? But she doesn't. Now, you can't in any way make that your fault. You just fell down the stairs. So you have to apply the second defense, which is it's not her. It's just life. People just, you're on your own in this world, right? Now, you prefer to believe that than believe someone in your family couldn't be there for you. And so the healing comes from being able to get into that, to really get, yes, the betrayal, yes, the anger, yes, the surprise. The surprise is really valuable for you, okay? Because that conflicts with what your heart knows to be the truth of what you really deserved. The surprise is the key access to how wrong it was and how badly she let you down and how scary that was and how horrible that was and how heartbreaking and how it formed this belief that you have to be independent.
Yeah.
But you really were, as Christy, is saying there, you really, really were let down, and being able to sit her down and feel that, that hug that you deserved, you can give that to her now, and then really feel how much she needed it without letting her build this narrative that she doesn't get met.
Well, I that was what I could see, is I could also see how from that moment I have played that out everywhere.
Yeah.
Like 34 years of practicing protecting that. I could see and even saw the ways of being, like being distracted was a part of like I'm very driven, very productive, and that's all a function of never having to experience this.
Well, it's a way of avoiding it, but it's also, if you're on your own, of course you're going to be doing that because you're scared. It's not coming from prolific creativity, although you have that gift. It's because, on your own, and no one will do it for you. So you're going to have to work twice really hard. That's what makes us click into that kind of way. You know, we go away from the natural abundant receiving and we go into, I will forge it in the fires of determination, you know, by my sheer grit. I will make it okay by my grit. And it's like, you know, the whole thing is unlearning that, feeling our natural deserving, feeling our natural abundance, feeling the heartbreak of that. Is this your maternal grandmother?
But no, my dad.
You know,
I know my maternal grandmother she died before I was born.
So, you know, this is, you know, we can see into the heart of your father by seeing into the heart of, that's how she would have been a parent to him, you know. So then how could he have been emotionally available to himself? Therefore, how could he have been emotionally available to you, right?
He wasn't, yeah. Yes, wait till you see that we're determined to be distracted. Yeah, I was. And and you know, it's I'm sharing this because, you know, as I always do, I want people to see the journey of transformation and also the journey of being, well, firstly, being open to just sharing experience, right? And it's not scary to actually do this work, particularly because I'm safe. Like, I'm safe with you, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm also very safe in this container, in this sense of I've created a whole community around me on the premise of authenticity and vulnerability, right? So I've got this safety to now share these experiences.
Well, you're taking it because you don't. It's more that you're safe in yourself. You don't really need the safety of the container or me. What I feel in you is that you have a relationship with yourself where you're willing to talk about what's true for you.
Yeah.
Yes, really, you have a deep safety in the value of that. And you know enough about people to know that they all have their own shit. And that actually what you like is doing that so that people can feel more. So you live in a world where people might have the courage to do what you're doing. It's not because you feel safe with me. It's because you feel safe with yourself. I reckon you'd do this on a train. I reckon you'd do it anywhere. You know, I reckon you probably do. I don't want to challenge what you're saying. I'm trying to, you know, actually reflect it's something more beautiful than you realize. And
Thank you.
And one of the challenges I have in the culture of therapy is I understand the need for confidentiality, and all the people that sit in my containers, sit in my practice, I honor their confidentiality, right? Culturally, it's important people to feel that they can share their dark shit with people and people aren't going to talk about it. And I fucking hate that. It's born from the Victorian fucking idea that if you have a crazy uncle in the family, you won't be able to marry off your fucking daughters, you know? And it's like everyone's so terrified of mental health issues that the shame associated with needing to see a psychiatrist or having any issues from 200 years ago is still making us all be like, oh, you've been to see a therapist. Does the therapist tell anyone about your problems? No. And it's like, is it confidential? And it's like, really? It's like what that makes everyone think they're alone in their madness. Let's all fucking talk about our madness a lot, openly, so that we can all realize how mad we are. And then there's no stigmatization. It's like, but still, it's like, let's all make sure it's all super, super hidden away, our issues and our vulnerability, and only in places where we feel safe. It's like, let's expand. It's like our willingness to get away with things needing to be confidential. It's like, what are we hiding?
Yeah. I do feel like there is a level of people needing to know how to hold it. You know, so like, yes, I'm talking to you, and I know that there's a lot of people on here that would be able to hold someone that walked in and said, I'm experiencing these things, I don't know what to do, I'm really sad. But I also know that you're right, I do this on the train. You know, I do kind of do this anywhere. I mostly am curious as to how people respond to it, right? And a lot of the time I get mixed responses, like people that, you know, do a lot of work tend to not do a lot of work. I shouldn't say that. It doesn't actually matter if you've done a lot of work or not. I shouldn't say that. There is a mix of responses. The first one is, I don't know what to say at all. Like, I literally was, I won't say where, but I was in a place the other day where I actually shared and started crying because someone that I'm very close to has cancer, right? And I was sharing that, and then I got really present to how sad I was about that, and I started crying. And literally this person walked off. Okay, right. got
The
distracted.
person with cancer, or someone you were talking to about.
No, someone was talking to.
Oh, yeah. Listen,
Right?
I mean, listen, I do hear you. That I mean, also, I'd say lots of times the people that have done work are sometimes the ones who are most likely to jump in, coach, try and sell you their services,
Right.
example, try and fix. And I think this is part of it. It's like, for me, the principles of what makes, my favorite thing is sitting in circle. It's my favorite thing, is sitting in circle with people who have the intention to be honest and open about themselves and be willing to share their vulnerabilities. But we've just got these agreements, these basic agreements in place where it's like, don't coach, don't overtalk, leave space between times when people are speaking, don't rush to fix, don't rush to solve, don't see someone who's crying and presume there's a problem, that, don't go over and hug unless they have asked for support. It's just these emotionally intelligent principles that could completely be taught in schools, where actually our emotions are just understood to be a really healthy and natural part of what it is to be flipping human. And it's like those, it's like, how can we expand the safety and sacredness of circle time into all of our conversations, but me personally with my family. I've found if just a bit of preemptive coaching about what I need from what I'm sharing and what I don't need can sometimes create these sacred spaces where actually it's not that hard to get people to recognize, like, I'm going to share some things and it'll be tempting for you to try and give me solutions. But I don't need solutions. I just want you to really hear that I'm really sad, and I just like to be witnessed in the fact I'm sad, and we can talk about solutions another day. I do that with a number of people in my life, and when I do that, they're brilliant. If I hadn't said that, that'd be a nightmare.
I think that's actually a really good point, that it's two-pronged. It's like, if you can be the person, you can actually request the agreement, like kind of say, this is how I need you to be with me right now. This is what I need. Also, what you can create agreements with a friend as well, or you can actually create agreements with people in relationships with friends to say, this is how I mostly need to be related to. When I share this stuff with you, I don't want you to sell me your program. Right? Can we have an agreement that I get just seen and heard? Okay. It does happen. I mean, I've a friend just recently said she was really worried about someone, and she kept calling all her friends, and she was really upset because everyone kept trying to sell her into something, and it's just frustrating, because this is like, there's a time and a place to have a conversation about a program or a product or a service, right? But when someone's opening up their heart, I just don't think that's the time and the place. I think it's the time and the place is for that person to be seen and heard. Now, maybe I'm idealistic, but in those moments, either someone's told you how they want you to react. I think the other thing you can do is actually ask.
Yeah.
I've even said to people, what do you want from me?
Or in that moment, like, let's imagine, like, I could be sat in the, I walked past someone the other day, yesterday it was, and they were sat on the floor outside a house, didn't have shoes on. It's fucking cold here right now. And they looked distressed, and I just felt intuitive to say, are you okay? And they went, yeah, really begrudging, yeah. And then I had my two daughters in a double pram, and I stopped, and I didn't want to accept that. And so I went back and said, listen, do you want to talk? I know it was probably really, really weird, right? But I saw someone that was, as in for him, right? But I saw someone who was in need and I wanted to support. Now, if I'd said, I'd like to help you, but if you pay, $97 and join my online container, that would be awful, I think, in that moment, right? But if I, out of the goodness of my heart, see that someone's suffering and I want to engage and I want to offer my gifts to support him in that moment as a gift, then there's potential beauty in that. But it is like, I could have channeled some kind of wisdom for him and given it to him without his consent, but that would also be really inappropriate. So I asked him, do you want to talk? And I noticed it, it was one of our earlier you know, what do we call these sessions? You know, I said to you, Jess, just do some inner child work, you know, and then 2 days later you write a meme, you know, it's like you can take your inner child work and shove it up your ass.
You're trying to tell me.
I was like, all right, Jess, I was just trying to give you some nice friendly advice. But you know what? You know, in that moment, I was, you know, maybe pushing my agenda and you hadn't asked for that. And it's like, you know, it is a really interesting, it's a really interesting paradox of how do we help, how do we heal, and when's appropriate to push our program, which is generally, you know, never, you know, it's how do we care without being a dick about it, you know, and I, you know, for me, it's like, how can those of us that understand the beauty of the sacred sharing circle, right, where magic happens, when people tell the truth, come from love and support each other without the idea something needs to be fixed, but where the witnessing allows things to evolve, where we get greater awareness and greater compassion for ourselves, and we can integrate the lost and afraid parts of ourselves and help them realize that they're pure and beautiful and there was nothing ever wrong. And that's what circle time does. That's what humans journeying together with truth and love naturally happens. Even without a trained facilitator, you get people sitting in circle, telling the truth, being lovely to each other. Magic happens. And it's like, how can we extend that? Why are we just awesome when we're in sacred circle? How can we imagine that our brothers and sisters, everyone we're interacting with is within sacred circle with us?
Yeah. You know, I have this distinction in my programs I call acknowledgement, and I practice it everywhere. And it's the practice of, because I just know we can't be perfect. We are in a big mess trying to work things out. You know, you said that thing to me. I then go off and write a post, you know, stick inner child work up your ass. And, you know, and it wasn't because of you. I'd also then had a couple of people after I'd done that show with you reach out to me and try to sell me their stuff. You know, like I just went, oh, fuck off. You know, I was just over it. I was in a rant. So here I am having that rant, you know, and I think I've got compassion for me, but I've got total compassion for you because I've done that. You know, I've done that to people. I've done exactly the same thing. I'm very keen on certain personal development programs, and so, you know, people will go, "I'm feeling this," and I'm like, "Don't go do that," rather than listen. Like I'd do it myself. But the acknowledgement piece for me is, I'll give you an example. So I had a friend come over tonight, right? And when I found out that someone very close to me had cancer, I was very upset. And in my upset, I'm trying to find meaning as to why it's happened, right? And then I put some meaning to it, like it's got something to do with some sort of resentment, you know? And then I'm talking to this friend, and her dad died of cancer, you know? And I'm ranting about, oh, this person's got cancer because, you know, because of resentment. And she's like, my dad was not resentful. And I'm like, well, you just don't know. You wouldn't know. He may not have talked. You know, out of my own pain, I know.
Yeah.
Now, tonight, that time has passed. You know, she was great. She never said anything about it. She loved me the way that I was. But time has passed, and I said to her tonight, because you know when you've done something that doesn't fit who you are. Like, I just knew that wasn't who I was. And I have a, you know, I just acknowledge it. The first thing when I saw her, I said, I just want to acknowledge that time where I said that was so not okay. And it's not even true. You know, that was out of my own pain for having, you know, the kind of relationship I don't have with someone, you know. So I really think that our access is never to try to get it right, never to be perfect, expect we're not going to be, but really live in the discovery of tapping into our own truth and what doesn't match, and always acknowledging it. Like, always. When you see that person, it's like right there. You'll go see someone, you're like, oh, I remember that time I did that thing. Instead of not saying it. I just want to acknowledge. Not, I'm sorry. I don't believe in apologizing, because it's human. It really is about acknowledging. I just want to let you know it's not okay that I did that. So that's just something that I do.
I was just
because I think
by these amazing messages there, so that's why I was slightly glazed over there. I'm reading these messages. Rachel Goss saying, when we're in growth flow, it's accepting that what we think today might be very different in 2 or 3 days or months down the line.
we are life. We are. Hello, Rachel. Good to see you. And Tiora.
Yeah, hey Tiora.
It is making amends. And I think it's an ongoing process. I think we are constantly just not doing things. We may do things that are not perfect and are not really aligned with who we are. And I think it makes a real difference to just acknowledge them. I really do. It's not everything. It's like, I mean, we don't have to go too far, but there are just some things that go a little further. Like that was something that went a little further. I could put myself in her shoes and really see that her father has died from cancer. And my comment was it was out of pain and so not appropriate.
Yeah. There's no doubt. I mean, for me, and I'm sure there's people out there that I still need to make amends to. And if you feel that I owe you some conversations, anyone watching this, then please contact me. I'm really open to those. I found those conversations to be some of my most favorite conversations in the world, not because they're easy and they don't need to end with a nice bow on the end, but for me, I openly, publicly create space for people to come to me with their grievance, with their upset, with their confusions, with anything that I may have said without permission or without care, without kindness, or from my own pain or from my own delusion, which is guaranteed. And I have systematically tried to go back to the people that I have wronged and make amends and own it and acknowledge it and at times apologize for certain things. And I cannot recommend it highly enough. As long as it's not unkind to the other and reopening for them in ways that are not productive or helpful for them, then I cannot recommend it highly enough. Because actually many of the people I contacted, they actually felt that whilst it was painful, it was a really integral part of their growth, but the acknowledgement was so valuable to them. And then I've just found another piece of my soul click into place, another fragment of sadness brought back to light, brought back to love. And so, yeah, the truth will set us free, huh?
It really will. And it doesn't have to be from guilt. And it doesn't have to be from shame. There's nothing to apologize for. It's you're human, but there's something so powerful in just speaking and acknowledging that it happened. And it feels like there's no dirty little secrets then. It's like everything's above board. Everything's like, that happened. I'm not here going, oh my God, that happened. And I don't know how to speak about it. It's like, we can just say it happened and we can move on.
Here's the thing though, and this is really key. What makes that possible is being in relationship with people, friends, partners, where they have the same curiosity, they have the same values, they have the same kind of openness about our frailty and fragility. If their future is stacked on our awesomeness and then we wobble, then they wobble. And so what begins to happen is our shit can then becomes such terrifying stuff and content for them, that if their stability is based on our stability, then it becomes very, very difficult to have those frank and open conversations about our failings, because we'll share them and they will lose their shit and get really, really scared and get really, really angry. And it can be really hard. So the thing that makes it work is that kind of that deep curiosity about our frailty and our fragility, the absolute certainty that our partner's going to have some hokey shit happening, which is just not in alignment with their highest ideals, driven from their trauma, playing itself out. And if we can hold it in love and literally get out our popcorn and be curious about it, it's like, oh, look at how your shit's completely messing up the integrity of our union. How fascinating, and it's like, oh, cool. Yeah, well, I wouldn't trade this container for anyone or anything, because I feel so safe to be not okay here. Then you become the person I want to be okay for more than anybody else. And so you're right. It's amazing to be able to have these cleanup conversations, but when we're in relationship and friendship and partnership, it's like, it's really hard to do that with people that don't have that stability.
Absolutely. Hello, Morningstar. Morningstar. She's acknowledging that she's been listening and not saying hello. There you go. We brought up all the not acknowledged things in the group.
Perfect.
And so Sally, I think this is good, but she said, personally, I still think an apologies are warranted at times. I want to be clear that I wasn't saying that you never apologize. I do think that, of course, there are sometimes things that go so far that, like, you just would absolutely apologize. Like, I've done things in my life that there's no, I just want to acknowledge that I drove my car through your house. Just want to acknowledge. You know, we just want to say it. No, it's actually not that I've ever done that. I'm just saying, I'm making the point that there are
emotionally, maybe, but
yeah, I've thought about it at times. But no, I've never done it. You know? But you know, there are some things. You know, I've called exes from when I was really young, where I was absolute jerk. You know, really reckless in terms of the way that I was treating my exes. Absolutely, just acknowledging that was not enough. It was like, no, I'm really willing to apologize, because I know in my apology I would never do it again. It's like that. An apology to me is an acknowledgement of something I would never do it again. Acknowledging humanity, I will fucking probably do it again. I've got no, I'm not promising at all that me screwing things up, possibly saying the wrong thing, annoying you, being inappropriate is not going to happen again. In fact, you want to be my friend, you want to expect it. You know, that's different. You know, it's different. So I just want to be clear about that. It's the level of allowing and almost expecting and loving people in their imperfections. And I still think there's a place for acknowledging things where you know that those imperfections had a bigger impact than maybe other everyday things.
Agreed. Nice.
Yeah. So thank you, everyone. I think that's a great place to stop, because it is 10:10. Curiosity, kindness, and compassion are 3 approaches that help me come into a conversation with anyone. Absolutely. That's beautiful. Curiosity is king. It really is. You can be the most pissed off human being on the planet, but if you bring curiosity, because you got no kindness and compassion, if you've got curiosity, you will make a difference. I have had times where all I've wanted to do is throw someone's drink in their face, right? But I've used the power of curiosity to turn myself around. You know, just they're going, oh my God, I'm so fucking angry right now. So tell me why you think that. It's very interesting.
I think, like Socrates said, the life unexamined is no life at all, right? When we've done work on ourselves, we know all of our pain is driven by our own madness, right? And we know everyone else is mad too. It's like, it does actually get fascinating. For me, it's like if someone is really in conflict with me, or I'm in conflict with them, it's just like, wow, this is full of riches. This is full of gold, right? How is the universe, my higher self, my soul, trying to bring something to my attention to look at, and how I'm appearing to others, or how others are appearing to me? What drama, trauma is unresolved in me? What am I putting up with? Where's my boundary lapsed? Where's my bullshit turning up? It's, to me, it's like, if you've got people in your face that like giving you shit, then there is something beautiful to be looked at, right? Beautiful brackets, painful, embarrassing, humiliating, unresolved. But it's like curiosity is the appropriate response to the seeker, because it's just like, how is the divine knocking on my door in this right now? Therapeutically, my favorite question, I know we have to end, is when people turn up with difficult challenges, my question is, how is this perfect? And not in a spiritual bypassing love and light bullshit kind of way. It's like, how is this really full of gold? What is this pointing to that is seeking resolution? And it's like, if we can ask that question, that's what is the actual truth, then it totally changes our relationship to what's occurring, because we're looking for the message, we're looking for the meaning, and we're looking for ways to transform our suffering into freedom. And that's the game. That's the only game worth playing.
Beautiful. Oh, Tom, thank you so much for tonight. Thank you, everyone that has tuned in. And Andrea, Charlie, Tiora, Sharon, Jessie,
Sally.
thank you for that last comment. That was actually Sally, of course. Rachel, Morningstar, Haley, Kylie, Nat, whoever's still on, love you to say goodbye to. Christy,
Charlie.
Yes,
not just
Sharon.
one Morningstar, just to be totally clear. Not just one Morningstar. Morningstar.
Thank you guys so much again for tuning in. You know, we've been going for a little while now. We're very close to Chloe, hello. We're very close to launching this into a podcast as well. That's going to go live as soon as I get my shit together. So we will do that.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chris T and Rachel and Theodora. Bye. We'll see you guys.
And if you do have anything you want us to explore, please do let us know. Just either PM myself or Tom. If you're like, I'd love you guys to check out this one and have us kind of like pull our personal experience out and explore it, let us know as well. Thank you guys for tuning in again. Until next time, have a great evening.
Thanks, Sharon. Bye, guys.
See you guys.